I just faced my own worst nightmare. The HOA president tried to break into my house with her master key, and when it failed, she called 911, and who answered? My son, who was sitting on the other end of the dispatch. Funny thing is, the only thing she broke that night was my patience. Let me start from the beginning. The first sign of trouble wasn't a letter in the mail. It was the sound of a key fumbling in my front door lock. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich. My wife Tammy was upstairs. The noise was wrong. It wasn't Tammy's practice touch or my own heavy hand. It was a jiggling, impatient sound. I put the knife down, my heart doing a little jump step in my chest. I crept to the foyer and peeked through the peephole. Standing on my porch, looking like a vulture who just spotted a fresh meal, was Karen. She was the president of our homeowners association, and she was trying to get into my house. Her face was pinched, her lips a thin, angry line. She rattled the knob again, then she tried the key one more time. It didn't work. Of course, I had changed locks a week ago. This was precisely why. I watched her a weird sense Avcom washing over me. This was the moment things would finally boil over. She let out a frustrated hiss like a leaky tire, and pulled out her phone. What she didn't know, the operator she was dialing was my son, Jake, fresh into his new gig as a 911 dispatcher, just 3 weeks on the job. Her thumb jabbed at the screen. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her body language was pure theater. Her arms waved, her head shook. She was putting on a show for an audience of one, herself. I unlocked the door and pulled it open mid-jab. She stumbled back, phone still pressed to her ear, her mouth open in a perfect O of surprise. Looking for something. Karen, I asked. I leaned against the doorframe, folding my arms. I tried to look as bored as possible. It's a special skill of mine. She snapped her mouth shut. You shrieked into the phone. He's here. The intruder is here. I raised an eyebrow. Intruder in my own house. That was a new one. Yes, he's threatening me right now. She took a dramatic step back, clutching her chest as if I'd just thrown a dagger at her. She was babbling about emergency access and imminent danger, like a locked deadbolt was a community-wide crisis. From inside, Tammy called down, Honey, who is it? Her voice was sweet and calm, a stark contrast to Thebanchi on my porch. Before I could answer, Karen screeched into her phone again. There's more of them. It's OL gang. Send everyone. Send the SWAT team. The SWAT team for a guy in a polo shirt and khaki shorts. This woman watched way too much television. I could hear a tiny voice squawking from her phone. I recognized it instantly. It was calm, professional, and trying very hard not to sound amused. It was my son Jake. Ma'am, Jake's voice said, clear as able in the quiet afternoon. Unknown to Karen was that Jake quietly flagged the call as a high-priority disturbance. Dispatch sending units while he kept her talking. Can you describe the intruder for me? Karen's eyes darted to me, an SD triumphant gleam in them. He's about 6'2" tall, graying hair, looks smug. I gave her a little smile. Guilty as charged on that last one. He's wearing a blue shirt. He opened the door of the house he was robbing. The nerve, she added. There was a pause from the phone. I could practically hear the gears turning in Jake's head. He knew our address. He knew his own address. And what is the address of the break-in, ma'am? Jake asked, his voice steady as a rock. Karen puffed up her chest, rattling off my address like she was reporting a war crime. 124 Willow Creek Lane, she said. Another pause, longer this time. I could picture Jake at his console, looking at the address on his screen, a slow grin spreading across his face. He was a good kid, my Jake. Smart. Got his mother's brains and my stubborn streak. Okay, ma'am, he said, and in his voice was now layered with something else, something I knew well. It was the sound of a carefully laid trap snapping shut. I need you to stay on the line with me. Don't approach the suspect. Police units are on their way. Can you confirm he's still there? Karen peered at me, her face a mask of righteous fury. Oh, he's sure, she hissed. He's just standing there smirking. I gave her a wider smirk this time, just for good measure. A few minutes passed. They felt like hours. Karen stood on my lawn, phone glued to her ear, occasionally glaring at me to make sure I hadn't vanished in a puff of smoke. I just stayed in my doorway, leaning. Tammy came down the stairs, tying her robe. What on earth is going on? She whispered, looking past me at Karen's lawn performance. Our HOA president is having a small public meltdown, I whispered back. She tried to use her key on our new lock, and now she's claiming I'm an intruder. Tammy's eyes widened, then narrowed. She looked at Karen, then at me. A little smile played on her lips. She trusted me. Shek knew I had a plan, or at the very least, that I was stubborn enough to make one up as I went. Then I heard it. The distant wail of sirens. One siren, then two. Getting closer, louder. Karan's smile became a wicked slash across her face. This was her moment of victory. She thought she had me. Trapped, cornered by the law she had so brazenly summoned. Two police cruisers screamed on to the corner and slid to a halt in front of my house, lights flashing, painting the trees in strobes of Redan blue. Doors flew open. Two officers, a man and a woman, stepped out. They were all business, hands near their hips. They saw Karen on the lawn pointing a trembling finger at me. Then they saw me, a middle-aged man in shorts, standing calmly in the doorway of his own home. Their faces registered red confusion. This didn't look like a break-in. It looked like a neighborhood dispute. "He's the one," Karen yelled, her voice cracking with excitement. He broke in. The male officer approached her cautiously. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." He then looked at me. "Sir, can you tell me what's happening here?" Before I could speak, another car pulled up, not a cruiser this time. A simple sedan Mason. Jake got out. He wasn't in uniform, but he walked with an air of authority that was all his own. He nodded to the other officers who clearly knew him. He walked right up to Karen, who was still sputtering. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I was the dispatcher on your call." Karen's eyes went wide. The color drained from her face. "You reported a break-in at this address. You claimed you were being threatened by an intruder," Jake continued, his gaze like ice. "Is that correct?" Karen swallowed hard. She looked from Jake to me, then back to Jake. The hamster wheel in her brain was spinning furiously, trying to a way out. "Well, yes. But this is your father's house, isn't it, Jake?" the female officer asked, connecting the dots. Jake never took his eyes off Karen. "It is," he said. "And this woman used her position as HOA president to attempt an illegal entry into our home. When she failed, she filed a false police report. A felony." The word hung in the air. Felony. Karen looked like she'd been slapped. Her whole puffed up, self-important demeanor collapsed in an instant. She was just a mean, bitter woman standing on my lawn, surrounded by the consequences of her own actions. The other neighbors were starting to peek out their windows now. Drawn by the commotion, her public victory had turned into a masterclass in public humiliation. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was trapped. Booty knew Karen. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. Humiliating her was one thing, but I could see the fire rekindling in her eyes. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was pure, unadulterated hatred. This single act of defiance had just drawn a battle line across our quiet suburban street, and I had a sinking feeling she was already planning her counterattack. When Tammy and I first moved to Willow Creek, we thought we'd found paradise. It was a quiet little neighborhood, nestled by a lake. The houses were nice, the lawns were green, and the birds sang in the trees. It was the perfect place to settle down after I retired. I'd spent 40 years as a forensic accountant, chasing down criminals who thought they could hide a dollar inside a spreadsheet. I was good at it. Very good. But I was tired. Tired of the lies, the greed, the endless maze of. All I wanted was a nice quiet porch to sit on with my wife. We bought house, a lovely 2-story colonial with a big oak tree in the front yard. For the first few months, it was perfect. We met the neighbors. There was old Mr. Henderson who had lived there for 50 years. There was the young couple across the street with 2 loud but happy kids. And there was neighbor Fred, a cheerful retired mailman who seemed to exist on a diet of conspiracy theories and homebrewed iced tea. He was a character but harmless. And then there was Karen. We met her at our first official welcome to the neighborhood barbecue. She didn't walk over to us. She sort of appeared. One minute, Tammy and I were chatting with Fred about the optimal soil pH for Ilis. The next Ashido fell over us. Karen stood there holding a clipboard at a barbecue. Her husband Bob stood half a step behind her, a big beefy man with a face like a grumpy bulldog. He just grunted and folded his arms, letting her do the talking. "Welcome," Karen said, but it sounded more like an accusation. "I'm Karen, the HOA president. I trust you received and read the community bylaws." I smiled. We did all 247 pages. It's a real page-turner. I especially like the part about approved mailbox colors. Thrilling stuff. Tammy nudged me in the ribs. Karen did not smile. "The rules are not a joke, Mr. Reynolds," she said, her voice frosty. "They are what keep this community from descending into chaos." I looked around at the peaceful sea.